You are now tuned into Flipping the Birds, a Philly Sports Network podcast.
What's going on, Eagles fans? Welcome one, welcome all to another episode of Flipping the Birds.
He's into the end zone. Touchdown, Eagles.
What's going on, Eagles fans? Welcome one, welcome all to episode 163 of Flipping the Birds. I'm Brian Cameron alongside Eric Reese and Morgan Burkett, following a fire intro by our guy Morgan. Like that was crack.
Yeah, gets me hyped up, man.
I really liked it. That was
awesome. Pretty sick. I like it, man. Like it's crisp, it's clean. Like my guy did everything from top to bottom.
Yeah, music too, man. Music too.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Top to bottom, man.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we went on a little bit of a hiatus at the Super Bowl. Everybody had to kind of mourn the loss of the Super Bowl. Went through a lot since then, but now we're entering a point in this the offseason where we're going to go through a lot much more, right? Franchise tag deadline was today. Not a single Eagle was tagged, which is not uncommon for the Eagles. But there's a lot of rumors going on, guys. There's a lot of rumors. And I think first thing we got to tackle is the promotions, right? Offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator. The new OC of the Eagles is Brian Johnson, who I believe we're all rooting for. But the new DC of the Eagles, Sean Desai, coming from Seattle. Yeah, I caught a brain fog. I'll say Chicago, but he's previously served in Chicago. I mean, how do you guys feel about the both of the moves?
I think that if you're going to have the former quarterback coach become the offensive coordinator, then it's probably the best fit because clearly this offense is centered around Jalen Hurts, especially with Sanders probably a free agent right now, and and you've seen this team without Jalen Hurts in a lineup. So this offense is centered around Jalen Hurts, and I think it just makes the most sense to put the person closest to his development.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the big things for Jalen Hurts, even just over the last year, we saw finally some continuity, some consistency in his coaching. Like, poor guy's had a coaching change every single year for the last probably 3 decades. He's not even that old. You know what I mean? Before he was born, they're probably already switching his coach up. You know what I mean? Like, so just that continuity, that consistency is massive. And I think Eric's right. Like, it just, promoting from within, you see all these coaching trees kind of develop and all this talent kind of blossom out of Philly and then go elsewhere. And it's because, they love to promote from within. And I feel like it's only positive. It'll be interesting to see. I do feel like there will be, some different wrinkles in the play calling. Shane Steichen was always one of those guys that loved his screen. So like maybe I'm not sure if we see more of that or we see less of that. I don't know if it's possible to see more of it. But I'm excited to see, just how much the offense changes because it probably won't change a lot. But I think those little wrinkles will change. And then on the defensive side of the ball, man, like I think that the most interesting thing for the next month is just to see how this team wants to be built defensively because that was something that, again, was a huge change moving from Jim Schwartz to Jonathan Gannon is, clearly wanted those smart athletic players that were kind of versatile with the positions they can fit. And so, how will it really work with the new defensive coordinator? But I think, ultimately how he's going to be Howie. I think this is a team that's going to continue to be built through the trenches. They're going to get after the quarterback. And I think just the variety in blitzes, something obviously Jonathan Gannon was a secondary first player and that probably won't, change drastically, but any time you get someone from the Vic Fangio tree, they're gonna get creative with the blitzes. They're gonna come after the quarterback. So I like it. It's gonna be fun to watch. It's just gonna be about what effects that has on the roster and even the draft. I'm excited to do my research into just how these drafts have worked out and shaped out for the Vic Fangio coaching tree.
And I think that's a key thing, right? I mean, a lot of people spoke about how Fangio was part of the Eagles' run, part of the Eagles this season, right? A consultant. But that's all he really was. He was just consulting. You could tell Jonathan Gannon, hey, like, the sky is blue, but if Gannon believes the sky is green at the end of the day, right? We saw that in the Super Bowl. But you're actually getting somebody from the Fangio tree. Like Sean Desai is an actual disciple of this man. And one thing that I found, how can I say this? I guess satisfying or comfortable. Like it gave me that comfort zone with Sean Desai was that he was going into a game with Chicago when he was at DC, and this was the season of Chicago was just terrible, right? They were just losing. They've been terrible for years, and they were facing the Ravens. Desai did his homework, right? At the time, the Ravens were struggling against the blitz. And at the point of that season, Desai was only blitzing about 16% of the time with his defense. In that game, he blitzed over 60, I think like 65% or 68% in one game. And to me, that just shows like this is a guy who knows how to adapt. Like this is a guy who knows common sense. At the end of the day, let's just call it what it is, right? Jonathan Gannon was just, to me, like I hate this. I would hate to use this word, but I feel like Gannon was a bit of a fraud. Like, the guy just believed so much in his own craft that he didn't see, what was actually in front of him, and it cost us a Super Bowl. As far as like, what kind of rift that caused between Sirianni and Gannon, nobody's gonna ever know. But I feel like this is the guy, right? This is the guy that you want with Hassan Reddick. This is the guy that you want with Darius Slade. This is the guy that you want with Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, Jordan Davis, Nakobe Dean. Like we're actually gonna see the development of talent on the defensive end. I mean, on the defensive side. And I'm curious to see how it's gonna be built at the end of the day. Like, we saw Robert Quinn actually flourish on this side, and he's a free agent right now. Was with Philly, didn't get no play with Gannon. I'm curious to see like if Quinn comes back or if like who's gonna come from the Bears that was a part of the side. I mean, Adrian Amos, free agent, was had one of his best seasons with the side. Like Chauncey Gardner-Johnson's not a lock yet, so there's so many different wrinkles that come from this, and I'm extremely curious myself. I'm extremely excited as well.
Do you think that CJ GJ is back next season?
Yeah, there's no way. Like, how do like the connection between him and Howie and him and Nick? Like, I feel like there's no way they let him walk.
CJ or TJ?
Oh,
I said
yeah.
TJ.
TJ.
I got a little emotional about CJGJ.
Yeah, I think unfortunately TJ is the new Jordan Hicks. Is he's going to go somewhere else. He's going to be that guy that makes a lot of tackles. I think like as good as he was this year, that's kind of where the Eagles see his ceiling. And you have a pretty damn good young middle linebacker waiting in the wings. If that's where you play him, again, he's so versatile. With Nakobe Dean, like he could play anywhere. He could be a damn good will. He's probably athletic enough to play the same position as well. But I think like that's the one piece of continuity I think with the two defenses is that you're going to ask your players to give a lot of looks, and you're going to drop into different coverage. Again, heavy zone, like you said, Brian. Like I think with coaching trees, like people get the misconception in general where it's going to be like the exact same defense, and a lot of it will be similar. A lot of the terminology will be similar. And there's only so many ways you can play defense, especially in the NFL, right? So it's just going to be one of those, again, we're going to see a lot of zone, hopefully not frustratingly lax zone that's super off, 15 yards off.
Yeah.
No sticks coverage, hopefully as well. But again, the key to this is going to have versatile players that can show a lot of looks, and like the Eagles are already pretty set up. They got their key pieces to do that locked in already, right? I think we're probably more likely to see Kaiser White back in midnight green than TJ Edwards, just because I don't know. I just got a gut feeling, but it does make sense scheme wise to keep a guy like that can cover so well. And then you have guys on the roster that can kind of maybe not immediately step in and fill TJ's shoes, but collectively fill those shoes. So unfortunately, I mean, as good as he was, I think that he's kind of going the Jordan Hicks route where he's going to go be great for another team.
Yeah, it definitely feels like that. And I want to kind of get your feedback on this, right? So there's rumors swirling, right? And the rumors come from, so far it looks like one source where it's coming from Adam Kaplan of Inside the Birds, where the Eagles are entertaining the idea of bringing Matt Patricia as a linebacker coach. It's no secret as to what happened in Detroit, right? Like we know the Darius Slay side of the story. We also know, a lot of people know that Matt Patricia is, a bit of a POS, right? How do you guys feel about like culture wise? Like why would to me it feels like the Josh McDaniels rumor all over again, where like everybody's panicking about it and the Eagles were not going down this path. But like culture wise, like how much of a culture shock would it be to see this guy in Philadelphia with Darius Slay still there, or possibly Darius Slay being traded?
I'd rather not even really test with it and bring him in. Like I think that we're doing pretty fine with anything as far as the linebackers have been developed previous to Matt. Sorry, I'm getting tongue tied. Matt Patricia being a candidate for a coach. So what I think we should do is just look simply in a different direction. Like I don't think that he's good for the culture. I just don't want him. I think that's a toxic thing to bring into an otherwise pretty sound culture that the Eagles have.
It's a very un-Philly thing to do, right? Like, I mean, we've never seen Philly to make a move like this. What do you think, Mark?
I mean, there is something to be said for the difference between, positional coach and a head coach, right? Like Jim Schwartz is not a good head coach, but a pretty good DC. He probably would have been a pretty good positional coach as well. There's only so much we know about that whole situation. So I don't know what exactly was said. I don't know how often it was a problem, but when it's your head coach and you don't vibe with the direction and you don't understand it, then you're gonna butt heads, especially when there's so much pressure on Patricia as a head coach.
Mm-hmm.
So he's clearly been humbled. I mean, if you go through a situation like that and you're not humbled, that's easy. You have the interview with him. He hasn't learned from his mistakes. You say thanks, but no thanks. But yeah, I don't know how much bad blood there is. It seems like Slay has quite a bit, but It's also Slay, man. He's vocal. I don't know.
Well, Quandre Diggs even came out speaking on behalf of Darius Slay.
Yeah.
So that's kind of big as well.
Absolutely. So yeah, I don't like, again, I think you got a good thing. And you just you got to kind of play that game of having some balance of like how much can you help your team versus how much can you hurt your team.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
The defense is going to change a lot, and I think that's something that kind of pre-Super Bowl we were hoping, or we were just kind of assuming wouldn't be the case. But I think this is a completely different defense in 2023. And so if Slay's not here and you got your guy that you think is your guy, then you bring him in, and this is a guy with a lot of NFL coaching experience and head coaching experience. He probably does more than just, be your linebackers coach. He's probably like a quality control guy as well and helps with a lot. So it's a tough call, but, I think it comes out in the interview, man. It's like, has he learned from his mistakes? Linebacker coaches, like, they constantly butt heads with people, man. Like, that's just
I don't like the Belichick coaching tree. Like the only exception for me, right, is Brian Flores. Like I feel like that guy to me is a low-key stud, right? Maybe not a fit for Miami at the time. Could be a great head coach down the line, but I'm not a big fan of anybody coming out of that place. Like it just doesn't make sense to me. Like Belichick is a mastermind and everybody else is just just licking their chops because they're coaching behind Belichick.
It does seem the opposite of what the current coaching staff is.
Mm-hmm.
So that can go one of two ways. Either it provides good balance, or it kind of pulls the ship in a different way. So it's an interesting fit to say the least.
And another interesting fit. I did report that a source close to the situation did say that Mike Adams is possibly interviewing for a role on the defensive staff. So I'm curious to see I'm curious to see what kind of staff the side puts together because he's still a young guy. Like this is I think he's like 39 or 40 years old, if I'm not mistaken. So just kind of see him piggybacking on, a little bit picking off that Bear staff. Like Mike Adams was the assistant DB coach over there, right?
Mm-hmm.
So bringing a quote unquote veteran player to the locker room with guys like CJGJ who could learn from him, with Reed Blankenship who could learn from this guy, and possibly a first round cornerback.
Mm-hmm.
Immediately, that sounds like a better hire than anything Patricia would offer.
Yeah, absolutely. I think hands down.
And just back to that Patricia remarks that we had earlier, you kind of do have to have your priorities in order, just like how Morgan was saying. And I think if your priorities are correct, you're prioritizing Slay over that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, I completely agree with that. Yeah, definitely agree with that. And what this defense is going to do to the offense now is it's putting a lot of weight on the offense, right? We're into a year where possibly Hurts is going to end up signing this extension with the next couple of days, right? But how much of this is going to weigh on Jalen Hurts, and where do you guys see Jalen Hurts ranking? I know Eric wants to kind of piggyback off of this as well. Where do you see Jalen Hurts ranking in the top tier of quarterbacks next season? Even going off of what he did this season, I think we all agree, like hands down, he's the best quarterback in the NFC right now, hands down. Like he's definitely top 3 quarterbacks in the league in my opinion. I would say top 2. Going back and forth with Joe Burrow, but where do you guys, where do you feel this offense is going to go with Jalen Hurts having to burden so much of it, and where do you see him ranking at the end of next season?
You said it right there. I mean, he burdens so much of this offense. The identity of the Philadelphia Eagles is Jalen Hurts at this, pretty much. So it's a matter of how good is he alone and how valuable is he, and that's the kind of the kind of contract and the signing that he'll get. But I have him, right behind Mahomes. Like I think the Super Bowl sure they're 1-2 in the league, and we can go down that list in a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of the most talented quarterbacks are in the AFC. So I think NFC wise, it's a good thing to have is one of the better quarterbacks in the NFC. I mean, I'm sure that we're going to discuss it as well, but one, he's shouldering a lot of the burden for the offense, but 2, he's going to be taking a lot of the salary cap as well. So he better at this point. But I think offensive wise, it's going to be really interesting because another thing that we kind of overlooked is going to been such a staple is that offensive line, and it just provides so much opportunity for whatever kind of offense you want to run. Is like at the end of the day, you still have the best. I mean, I'm sure everyone has an argument for their team being the best offensive line, but historically, there just haven't been many offensive lines that are as good as the Eagles consistently year in year out. And you don't know what's going on with Jason Kelce. Lane Johnson obviously was playing through injury all season. You still have guys waiting in the wings. You still have the best positional coach in the NFL, Jeff Stoutland. And so what I think is going to happen is they're going to find creative ways to continue to protect Jalen Hurts. I think that was the big theme of this year is you're not putting him in positions that he's uncomfortable, and then you kind of see him be creative and freestyle and all that stuff. So it'll be interesting. I do think that having I'm sure he's going to have more insight into this offense. I think like last year there probably was, but Shane Steichen was established. He wanted to prove himself. I think there's a bit more stability there now. Like I don't think, I think that the conversation is going to be more about how we can progress Jalen Hurts, and there's not much progression to be done. So now's the fun time you get to get creative. So that's going to be really exciting. Who knows if Miles Sanders is back, but you still have your top 3 receivers, including Dallas Goedert, obviously.
Yeah, I was hoping you were including the other one.
Yeah. Yeah, man, it's a good place to be for the offense. But shit, it might be one of those teams that has to put up 30 points to win, but they're completely capable.
Yep.
It feels like they'll be kind of a replica of what the Chiefs were at the beginning of the season, right? They had no footing, right? They were trying to get everything together. The defense wasn't really doing well. Young guys had to step up. And I feel like that's where we're going to see Philly go next season, that direction where it's kind of like they're going to rely heavily on a Jordan Davis, on a Nakobe Dean, on a first or second round cornerback, whether it's Kelly Ringo, whether it's is it Devin Witherspoon?
Yeah.
Yeah. Joey Porter Jr., whoever the case may be, right? Or maybe they sign a guy. But I think it's smart to temper expectations of what to expect from this offseason because everything's I think it's gonna be in-house mostly. Probably 1 or 2 guys that they sign off the free agency, and then other guys that they just wait until like mid-August to sign and bring to the roster, right? But I'm curious to see what we see out of Jalen Hurts, right? Like I mentioned, I mean, out of the top 10, I feel like he's definitely 2 or 3, right? And just like you're really gonna see if he's actually that guy going forward, because he's gonna have to put up wild amount of points per game. You're gonna have to see him passing a lot to AJ Brown. You're gonna have to see how how they continue to integrate between Devontae Smith and AJ Brown, and now the new rush attack because it's not Miles Sanders back there, and we know Miles Sanders is a great he's great hitting the hole, right? Like when he hits it, it's a home run majority of the time. Kenny Gainwell's a big question mark, even though what we saw from the playoffs was great. We still don't know what he could do in season because he didn't get many touches.
Mhm.
Trey Sermon most likely won't be here, or he'll just continue being a backup. Boston Scott's a free agent. Derrick Henry hasn't put on the Eagles jersey yet. Like, there's so many things going on, right?
It's facts. Yeah.
But so all right, let's talk about top 10, right? Top 10 QBs. We kind of left off on the last episode, going off on this. And Morgan, you were I think you were on vacation. Where do you feel Jalen Hurts stands in the top 10? If you want to go through it, I feel like Eric has his list right in front of him too.
I do actually have my list right in front of me for what I think. Of course, based on only last season, no other stuff before.
Okay. So take it away, Eric, because I have no list in front of me, so everything's gonna be right off the top of my dome.
So you guys can, throw shame at me or whatever you like. Just let me know along the way.
Just make sure you include Daniel Jones, who just got a wild deal.
So here's the thing. I have him he would be 10, but I don't know between him and Geno Smith.
Oh.
That's the only thing, but that's where I would have Jones in my top 10 list. He would be 10. Now, there's names left off here, but then again, we got to remember we're talking about last season and nothing else. So, like Tom Brady, I'm sorry, but I don't have you as a top 10 quarterback.
Yeah, I wouldn't really include Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers because it was weird. It was a weird year for both of them.
Yeah, that's exactly why they're not included in my top 10. And I know people would immediately stick them in there based on everything they've done. But anyway, nonetheless, Mahomes number 1.
Okay.
Then I got Hurts number 2. Burrow number 3. Allen number 4. Herbert number 5. So I think that's everyone's 5 somehow, some way.
I feel like Herbert is interchangeable with Jackson just because Lamar Jackson, we haven't seen him healthy in quite some time, right? But they're both in the same predicament where it's like they're just not in helpful situations. I think Herbert actually is not helping himself in his own situation, and while Jackson doesn't have any help. But I feel like those are interchangeable.
And I think so based on last season again, like I get Goff. And this is, probably the more disputed territory 6 through 10. But I get Goff, Lawrence, Jackson. Then it was going to be Cousins, and then Jones or Smith.
So you have
I was going to have
Lawrence.
Tua in there. Like I do believe Tua would absolutely be a top 10 if he stayed healthy.
That's interesting. I don't know how you feel about him, Mark. More got his cheat sheet going too. I might as well pull out mine.
Yeah, I don't think Daniel Jones is in my top 10.
It's disputable for me.
Yeah, I mean, I think again, top 5. I agree with. I think that Jalen Hurts is my third quarterback. I think I still have Joe Burrow above him. And I mean, the argument can be made. Joe Burrow has quite a few weapons. Those two receivers are pretty good. But I think, we don't know if they're going to be able to keep both this year or into the future. And I think you just see Joe Burrow. He's got that Patrick Mahomes about him where, I mean, I know it's nice to have those two receivers, but he just seems like a guy that can do it regardless. Cincinnati's offensive line is not getting better. It's a constant thorn in the side, and he still makes stuff work. And I think, just as a passer, he's just special. I do think Jalen Hurts is better than Josh Allen this year. I think that those guys are kind of interchangeable. I think I see that's kind of where Jalen Hurts is that, again, when you look at the talent Josh Allen has around him, man, it's sometimes he's just special. And so I think that's kind of the category. Anywhere in that top 5, obviously Mahomes is the clear one. Or top 4, sorry. And I do think Justin Herbert's 5, but again, he just seems like one of those quarterbacks where you're kind of waiting to see the ceiling. You see glimpses, but it's not ever consistent. Trevor Lawrence was impressive this year, man. And I think we maybe took for granted just how good Doug Peterson was as well.
Mm-hmm.
he won a Super Bowl. We're very 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 thankful for that. But he's that he's gonna keep developing. Jacksonville's finally looks like they have something going. It's been a while, and even with that one kind of that run to the AFC championship, you didn't think that was going to sustain. It seems like they have an opportunity for sustained success this year. Well, that's a lot of S's. That's hard to get out. But Tua, I don't see it, man. I don't know. I don't know where he ranks. But I think you put the two fastest guys in the NFL at receiver and let someone bomb the football. I didn't watch much Miami Dolphins this year, to be honest. I find them hard to watch in general. Outside of the jerseys, the color scheme's nice. But yeah, I just don't see it. You ask him to throw the ball up. I know that obviously Mike McDaniel's a brilliant offensive mind. But I don't know. I still have my reservations about Tua. Jared Goff was really impressive this year. I mean, again, if you're going off last season, I'm sure Geno deserves a spot in the top 10. That's not happening again, man. It was lightning in a bottle for him. He's going to be a great backup somewhere. He might get an opportunity to start again. I mean, Lamar has to be in your top 10. Mm-hmm. So I think I put Lamar.
Now, if we're basing off of last year, though, is he further towards 8 to 10 around there?
I think he's 7 for me, and I just think that Baltimore has done absolutely nothing to help him. If anything, that they're trying to do their best to figure out ways to. It's really sad what's going on in Baltimore, man. I know you got Mark Andrews right there. He's really talented, but you trade away your best receiver. You do nothing to replace him. Apparently, there's stuff going on, and even in that offensive locker room with the coaching staff. It just seems like they can't put it together. You spend all this money on a linebacker when you already have a pretty great linebacker core.
Yep.
I don't know what's going on in Baltimore, but I think whether or not he stays, we're going to see just how good Lamar is. He's amped, man. He's pissed off, and so I
think Geno secured his bag today too.
Yeah, no, I think it was yesterday actually, right?
Or was it today? Or yesterday.
It was yesterday. They extended him. Wild deal. I mean, well deserved. I think the first year he's making close to 50-something mil in that first year.
I agree with Morgan.
I still think they're in the market for a quarterback. I think.
Yes.
I don't think he's the long-term solution.
Yeah, it's a 3-4 year deal.
And then a guy that hasn't been mentioned yet is Justin Fields. I think that he cracks my top 10. Again, Bears, what do they got going on? And this guy's special. And it's still the rumor that they're going to look for another guy with the number 1 pick. It just ridiculous to me. This is Justin Fields. If you're asking for someone who has that opportunity to make that meteoric leap in the next season, this is him, man.
So where do you have Fields? You have him at 10? You have Fields at 10?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
So are you insinuating that maybe the Bears try to trade Fields if they're getting a number 1, if they're getting a quarterback again?
I've heard rumors, but I think they'd be dumb to do that, man. I think
they'd be stupid. I think they trade that pick for more picks and just move back a little bit.
I mean, you traded away one of your best linebackers because you didn't want to pay him. You have an opportunity at a first pick. You go Will Anderson.
Mm-hmm.
And you make it simple.
Exactly.
Or you trade back. You could trade back there too.
What about the Falcons for a place?
I think that's Lamar. That for some reason that screams Lamar Jackson all over.
It's not on his list apparently.
So really? What about Fields for Atlanta?
No, I think I want to see Desmond Ridder play, man. I want.
Oh, you mean okay? Yeah, it's fair.
Falcons aren't going to compete anytime soon. You might as well let the rookie. Well, I guess not rookie anymore, but the young man.
I'm very surprised of you adding Fields so quick in your list. Damn. Okay. Obviously, so for one, I'll definitely go Pat Mahomes, right? Two, I feel like if you're the best quarterback in your conference, you deserve to be 1 or 2, right? And I think Jalen Hurts is the best quarterback in the NFC. So number 2, then Josh Allen. 4, I think you go.
Burrow at 4, eh?
Oh my apologies. I'm sorry. I was wondering. I'm skipping somebody, right?
Wow, wait, Burrow.
Nah, go Joe Burrow 4. Josh Allen's 5.
Joe Burrow's 3.
Yeah, Joe Burrow's 3. Josh Allen's 4.
My shit. Okay, yeah. Mahomes.
I don't think I gave 10 either. I just gave facts and then
Mahomes, Hurts, Burrow, Allen, Herbert, and then 6. I will give it to Lamar just because we know Lamar's a special talent, right?
Yeah.
7 though. I'll give 7 to Tua. I'm a big fan of Tua, right? I feel like he could sling it. I feel like he does have moments where he's extremely off. But he has a lot of freaking potential. But 7 is also interchangeable with 8, and 8 is I feel like a guy that nobody's really talking about who could still kind of sling it. Yeah, I hate to
Yeah,
say it, right? Kirk
he
Cousins,
Kirk
he
Cousins.
he kind of
makes
balled
sense.
out, right? He does what he needs to do in the right moments. He's not prime time. He's not playoff time Cousins. He's just a seasoned quarterback that could do what he needs to do.
That's just
Um,
it, though. He's not prime time.
he isn't, right? But
Yeah.
neither is this guy, number 9, Jared Goff. He's not prime time, but he was slinging it. And I told everybody last year Detroit's offense was gonna be pretty damn good, and they were pretty damn good.
Yeah.
Number 10, I feel like out of respect, you got to give it to Kyler Murray. Just out of respect, like he was balling the year before. I know he's not the best guy in the locker room. I don't like him personally, to be honest. But I feel like I just can't. Like, who else could I really give it to at that point? Like, actually, no, my apologies, Trevor Lawrence. Sorry, I completely
Yeah, you
skipped
can
him.
give it to Lawrence immediately.
Yeah, there we go. That's my 10. Give it to Trevor Lawrence. Sorry, Kyle.
Mhm.
Hell, I mean, at that point, you know what? I won't be that wild, and maybe you don't give it to Daniel Jones.
Oh, I forgot about that guy. But no, he does not crack my top 10.
Yeah, he doesn't.
That's
I
a
guess
wild overpay.
after a like based on last season, he would probably be 11, and I probably do have to put Smith there for me. But then,
I feel like Geno Smith is 11, but like, do you guys feel like Daniel Jones would be a better quarterback if he had a better wide receiver core, like at least one main wide receiver?
I mean, he's got one of the most expensive receiving cores in the league. Pay Kenny Galladay $60K or $60 million, and then there you go.
Yeah, that's it. That's all you got to do, right?
no, I think I mean, of course, he would be better if there was a little bit more talent around him, but I do think that he's finding a way to use his athleticism to his advantage. That's something I've noticed in his games against Philadelphia last season. But then again, they just paid a pretty decent amount of money to Jones for he can't compete in his own division. He's 0 for 3 against Philadelphia.
One thing you'll notice, and 49ers fans, if you're watching, we didn't put Brock Purdy up there. That's crazy.
No, not a Garoppolo, not a Trey
7-1 Brock Purdy. Who would have taken the 49ers all the way to the Super Bowl had he
not gotten injured. Yeah.
However, I think I would have put Garoppolo top 10 had he stayed healthy.
Garoppolo, no.
But he's like the game manager of game managers, so I would also float him between like 10 to 12.
Secretly,
but for that you put Dak Prescott. I feel like
crap.
Yeah, I feel like secretly Dak Prescott, Jared Goff, Kirk Cousins, and Jimmy Garoppolo are just all different versions of the same dude.
Yeah, they're all much,
yeah.
I think Kirk Cousins is probably the best talent-wise out of those, but I think Jared Goff's season is just that, like, it wasn't talked about enough how impressive that was.
Yeah.
The
Lions were there, man. They were really there. Like, they have a good receiving core too. Like, Jameson Williams came back late in the season, right?
Yeah. Just like the stats, I didn't even really like. Honestly, I'm just so 4,400 passing yards, 29 touchdowns, 7 interceptions.
That's a great, man. That deserves to be in the top 10. Like, the guy really he balled out without Sean McVay
on the fucking Lions. So
I can't talk today. I don't know what's going on.
Dude, me too. I was botching it hard earlier.
Yeah, take a couple weeks off, see what happens. You know what I mean? Like, it's just
screwed up in the head, man.
I forgot how to talk.
But
okay,
we're gonna do a lot of talking for the next segment because we have a lot. I'm
ready for this. I'm gonna give it like a college try, and I'm probably gonna fail hard because I don't really know the draft picks like that because hockey's not over yet. But I want to. Here we go. I'm ready for this.
Sign, draft, or trade. Welcome to Flipping the Birds. We're going to give you a live sign, draft, or trade segment.
SDT, baby.
There we go, right? So let's start at the most needy position, right? Cornerback. James Bradbury is a free agent. Darius Slay's still here. Probably going to restructure his deal, keep him, either extend them. I feel like there's no way you don't extend them. But then after that, it's quite a fallout. Like, Zach McPherson hasn't shown himself. We haven't seen much out of Josh Jobe last year. Josiah Scott is a backup at best. And then Avonte Maddox, he's our slot guy. We know he's not going to move from that. He's the guy going forward. Should the Eagles sign, draft, or trade for a cornerback? And if so, who's your pick at signing? Wow, I cannot speak. Forgive me. At signing, drafting, and trading for? Who wants to go first?
I'll start with this one, and I think this is the most important person as far as signing is concerned, because I do think that the Eagles need to re-sign Bradbury. Like that's probably one of the main priorities outside of a Hurts deal to me.
Mm-hmm.
It's very important to have two sure cornerbacks, and if you do get Garner Johnson to stay, then that's fantastic too. Even though I think he'll test the free agency market for the biggest bag he can get. So, yeah, I mean, I'm for this position right here. I think you're going to sign, and it's going to have to be Bradbury to stay.
Interesting. Okay. How you feeling, Morg? You feeling froggy?
I think I agree with Eric, but I don't think it's going to be Bradbury. I think it's an underrated but talented free agent class, and I'm sure changes will
He's
be
gonna
made.
take my guy.
You
He's gonna
saw
take my guy. I feel
you
it.
saw the Dolphins, let Jones walk, or they're going to let Jones walk.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't know if he's the answer, but I'm just saying that there's going to be players available, right? As teams kind of figure out their cap, there's going to be option available. I won't take your guy, but I just think there's options. I think that it'll be interesting to see. Who I'd really love is Jonathan Jones. Is that your guy?
That's my guy. Go ahead.
No.
I
got a backup plan. Go ahead. I got a backup plan.
I
Go
thought you
ahead.
were gonna say Byron Murphy, to be honest.
That's
But
my backup plan.
okay, perfect. My bad. But yeah, man, just the chip on his shoulder he plays with, man. He's just fun to watch. I know he kind of came out of nowhere. I think that New England gets a shot at him. I think that they that's probably his first right. They got first right of refusal to kind of like pitch him, and he probably stays in house. But there's guys like that, right? Where it's like, maybe this time last year, you weren't really considering him as a really good target for free agency. I think the premise of the Eagles going cornerback at 10, I don't love it. I think that in general, how he doesn't really take his chances with secondary. I think he's going to again target the lines, and you have a big discrepancy. Obviously, there's still time in the pre-draft process, but there's a big discrepancy on which corner it should be. And then, you see like a huge drop off, like whoever people think is the first corner, you see one going to 10 to the Eagles. That's like an easy mock. And then the next corner is not coming off the board to like the 20s.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So there's that big gap. And like, unless you really love a corner, it's possible they trade back into that 15 to 20 range, and then maybe it's the corner. But I just think unless you're drafting a corner like JC Horn was at 8, and you had so many defensive linemen in that draft. You saw Sauce Gardner get drafted. Again, like they're early. I think 10's like kind of late to get those corners. I don't think there's that guy in this cornerback class, and I just don't think you take a chance. Instead, you draft a guy in free agency and you use like a 3rd round pick to hope you get one of those corners that kind of make something of themselves. And I know that that's kind of been the strategy for the Eagles, and it hasn't really worked out, but it just doesn't seem like Howie to use that top 10 pick on a corner. So I think sign is the option. Trade is interesting. I don't know the Eagles have many pieces to trade. That's where I kind of question.
I think trade is very interesting because they have that second round pick for next season, right? They got a second round. They got a second first this season. But I agree. Like I wouldn't go dipping in those buckets to get a cornerback, right? I'm enticed by Byron Murphy. Like the guys, there's something about him, right? I feel like going with Darius Slay and having Byron Murphy out there would be great. I think he'll fit the scheme of what this guy's gonna bring, whether it's zone defense. But he has interesting stats, right? Last season he allowed his career fewest yards per reception. It was 9.4, which isn't glorious, right? It's not phenomenal. It's not James Bradbury and Darius Slay 2.0. But in a defense where you have a safety, quote unquote, CJGJ back there, right? Then you have Darius Slay on the other side. I feel like he will produce here.
He's
And he
young,
might be, yeah, he's extremely young, dude. Like only 4 seasons in the NFL so far, and they haven't been bad seasons. He's averaging about like 65% completion percentage against them, which isn't great. But you pair him with Darius Slay for another 2 seasons, and he's learning from one of the better quarterbacks that ever played a game. And it just fits to me. Like, it just screams Philly. He's seasoned. He's he's plug and play. He can learn from the best. He can be an immediate impact. Drafting is, I feel like it's the same thing like you mentioned. Like, it's gonna be like kind of last year where we saw that weird waterfall of wide receivers just come in after 10, where it's like, Jameson went and the next guy and then the next guy, and then the Eagles had to trade for a guy and they end up with Jordan Davis. I feel like at 10 we may end up with Jalen Carter. Don't ask me how, but I feel like somehow, some way he's gonna fall to the Eagles. Either that, Eagles will trade up to the 8th pick. But I think signing's the best route to go. And if you go with a Byron Murphy, could you get a Byron Jones for a cheap deal where it's like you get him on a prove it 1 year, 10 mil deal? Or, you get Jonathan Jones, you locked up another young kid for another 3 or 4 seasons. I feel like the money's there for them to use, right? I feel like they can definitely sign one of these young guys who are experienced in the game to come to Philly, come to a different culture, and learn from Darius Slay.
Mhm.
The next one is going to be fun. Running backs. We saw the rumors, right? Nick Chubb is up for sale. Derrick Henry was up for sale, then taken off the market. But according to Zillow, he's still for sale, right? Then you have the draft class. You have, forgive me if I butcher this, Bijan Robinson. You have Jamar Gibbs. You have, I think, is it Jalen Spears as well? You have these guys in these young guys. Or could you sign one? Could you re-sign a Miles Sanders? Could you are there any other free agent running backs?
I mean, there are, but I don't believe
Like non-essential ones.
I had the list up. Yeah, they weren't like sticking out to me. Like, if you are going to sign,
David Montgomery, there it is. I forgot about Monty. David Montgomery's a free agent.
That's fair.
In between the tackles
runner
runner that can't stay healthy,
then you're probably going to stay with Sanders.
True. So, Kareem Hunt as well, according to the chat.
Fuck. I didn't want to say anything.
All right, so go
I
ahead.
didn't want to give away.
The floor is yours. I'm not gonna say my pick, but the floor is yours.
Okay. Yeah, I think this is probably a 2-part answer. I do think they'd probably draft someone, but it's gonna be later rounds. Again, kind of like a Howie strategies. You never know, right? You pick up these guys. They kind of need a bruising back, and I think that's kind of a misconception too, where you need those big backs. Like, you just need someone that can pick up short yardage. Shit, Boston Scott and Kenny Gainwell have proven they can do that. But yeah, I think adding a guy like Kareem Hunt, I don't know what he's gonna be priced at. It's gonna be an interesting kind of conversation because you don't want to overpay for a guy like that. You don't know how much he's gonna really be a part of the rotation, but I think that's a guy that's just overlooked. The conversation has been around Nick Chubb. I don't think he's getting really what he wants in Cleveland. And there's a real opportunity to be the number 1 running back in Philly again. Obviously part of that committee. But let's not kid ourselves. I don't like Kenny Gainwell was fantastic in the playoffs. He's not your number 1 guy. And he may be RB1B, but you need that guy that's proven that he can tote the rock a certain number of times. I think that Kareem Hunt's a really good option. I don't think that the Eagles go running back in the first round. I think that's where Robinson goes. I just think, again, like, I'm not gonna be shocked if this is a boring draft where the Eagles draft linemen in the first round, even though they got 2 first round picks. Like, it did them pretty well this season, So I think, draft someone mid rounds and then pick up a free agent. And honestly, if the Eagles go into the season with kind of a waiver free agent and Kenny Gainwell, you're just looking at a team that's built like the Chiefs and the Bills are, where their primary runner is going to be their quarterback.
Okay, how you feeling, Eric?
I'm thinking you sign again, and I would stay with Sanders. That's somebody I want back because it's tried and true, and I think that whatever hump it, injuries, whatever it was before, that that we can all just kind of attach to him as like a negative connotation. I think he's finally had that season, and that was a breakout season, and we're seeing exactly the Sanders that we wanted to see finally. And it'd be a shame to get rid of that while it's the whole point of why he's here. So I think that he fits perfectly in that offense. Obviously, not just last season, but the season before. like that rushing attack is incredible with Hurts and Sanders. I do think that Kareem Hunt could be a player that could replicate that. Again, I'm not really sure about what the contract number would be for a guy like Kareem Hunt versus Sanders, but my feeling is he goes Sanders because it does make a lot of sense as well in the draft to go for a lineman, whether that's your offense or your defense. But I just kind of I mean, my gut tells me you're gonna try to sign, and maybe it's Sanders resigned.
Okay, I guess I'm the only one that's gonna dive off the deep end here, huh? Or should I put in the A? I think the Eagles trade for a running back, and I think it's for a running back that's being widely overlooked. That was rumored to be drafted by the Eagles back then, right? That was rumored to be on the trade block in the beginning of this offseason.
Frank Gore.
Nah, imagine the return of. I think they trade for Dalvin Cook.
Okay,
and that's nice.
And I know, I feel like we got to kill this myth, right? I need everybody that's watching this podcast and listening to this podcast, stop thinking with the Eagles' money, right? If you're in sales, you don't think with the customer's pocket, right? You think, how you could spend that money. That's how Howie Roseman moves, right? Howie Roseman is a very intelligent GM. He knows what's in his pocket and he maneuvers around it. If they trade for a Dalvin Cook, they trade for a Derrick Henry, it's very easy for them to restructure these deals. Dalvin Cook, he has 3 more years in his contract, right? If they want it out of his contract after one season, it's a $3 million dead cap hit for the Eagles. No harm, no foul, right? If they trade for him, you could restructure the contract that's more beneficial for you, where you would provide more money up front, and then later down the road, the salaries looking like $3 million, $7 million, $4 million, whatever case may be. But I feel like Dalvin Cook makes the most sense. Vikings need to kind of revamp their offense a little bit, right? They need to also free up some money. And Philly, I mean, I don't think it'll cost a Derrick Henry deal. It wouldn't cost a Nick Chubb deal. You're talking about probably like a second-round pick from 2024, which ironically they have 2 of. You're talking about possibly pairing that with a 6th-round pick or a 5th-round pick or even a 7th. I think that if there's a deal to be made, it's going to be for a running back like Dalvin Cook. And let's not forget, Howie was sniffing around the Saints for Alvin Kamara last year.
Mm-hmm.
That shows that they're willing to go for a big name running back.
Mm-hmm.
And they had Miles Sanders.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Actually, I like that.
There we go.
Are you just offering the picks on the trade offer for Dalvin Cook?
I'll give a 2nd, a 5th, or a 3rd, like by itself.
Is that including one this year and one next year, or is that like staggered, or is that
I wouldn't.
next year?
I would try my best not to touch any picks this year because they only have, I think, like 6 or 7 picks.
Well, they're gonna get possibly up to 4 compensatory as well.
That would count for this season, or for this draft? Oh, okay, perfect. Then yeah, you could dip into your 3rd round pick this season. If you're thinking about drafting a running back in the 3rd round, there goes your running back.
And they're not Dalvin Cook, right?
Exactly. And he's 26, 27 years old, so you have a good 3 years left in him. And he doesn't need to do much.
And had a weird year this year, right? Where he wasn't used a lot by the Vikings. Had a very efficient year, but clearly is not in the plans as much as he used to be. So
exactly
makes a lot of sense.
Has a lot of tread on the side, but running back by committee is what the Eagles do, right? You have Gainwell back there to spell him. You bring back Boston Scott to spell him. Like, you want that guy that's going to make the big play in the Super Bowl. And I feel like Dalvin Cook's that player that will make the big play in the Super Bowl, or Derrick Henry will make the big play in the Super Bowl.
It's actually a pretty stacked free agent class for running backs, man. There's a lot of good names on this.
Who's actually on the list?
He's on the list.
Okay, so Kareem Hunt.
Okay.
I mean, Rashad Penny's interesting. I just don't. I don't know.
He's never healthy.
Exactly. Jamal Williams is interesting.
Okay.
Oh. I would go Jamal for cheap.
Yeah, that sounds actually nice. Yeah.
Going down the list a bit, I think he stays in Detroit. I think they keep him.
It's like the change of pace back.
Oh, another guy that's
Deuce
available.
Deuce is going to keep him, man. I think Deuce likes him. But.
DeAndre Swift is apparently available.
Okay.
I wouldn't take him, but yeah.
You have you could potentially kick the tires on Ronald Jones. I think that's probably a mistake. Yeah. Amir Abdullah. Again, like these are guys that you just add to rotation. Latavius Murray, if you need a big.
Leonard Fournette is a free agent. I mean, he just got released.
Right?
Yeah, but I would rather keep definitely Sanders over Fournette. I mean, that's just where I'm at as far as
Kenyon
a
Drake.
youth, things like that. Yeah.
Marquise on mentioning Alexander Madison as well. I mean, Dalvin Cook's
Yep.
backup. That kid's a pretty
Another
good player.
tough runner. David Montgomery, Devin Singletary, Damian Harris is another guy. We talked about that last year.
Yes.
I cannot stand Justice Hill. I don't want just any. But a player that I really did like. I mean, so James Robinson, another option, really interesting.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So for that case, you
and
sign
then
somebody for cheap.
Travis Homer, who is, again, like maybe just a rotational guy, but again, like one of those Seahawks backs that just runs hard. And then I really like Myles Gaskin, the Miami.
That's an interesting one.
So he could be like your another third. Again, I don't know. Boston Scott's also a free agent. I assume he won't be very expensive. But if you're looking to revamp the rotation, there's a lot of options there, depending on how you want to build it out. It's a pretty deep, pretty stacked running back free agency class. And then you're talking about all the trades, all these guys that want to trade places. Clearly, the running back is such an undervalued position right now.
Yeah,
you can kind of just pose the question, like, what would it take?
Isn't that the crazy thing? Like, it's such an undervalued position, but it's such a needed position. You can't be such a pass-first offense without the running back, right? You can't, like, Eagles wouldn't be nowhere without Jalen's running ability, but also without Miles Sanders and a Kenny Gainwell, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's so crazy to think about that. What's this?
Though, if Bijan Robinson is taken with that early pick, I wouldn't be mad. I just would think that there were better options.
See, and I have a theory behind that.
Take him at 10. You can't take him at 10.
Yeah, really? I know. I think it's early too.
I do have a theory behind that. And real quick, shout out to Duck. Thanks for letting me know about that. I appreciate it.
I didn't even realize the Deuce was gone to Carolina.
Yeah, I didn't notice that either. So I was going to bring that up. Does that all of a sudden make sense that Jamal Williams would be there, or do you think that Detroit, regardless, is like no?
He might end up in Carolina with the Deuce.
Carolina, man.
But if the Eagles' defense is going to be kind of in a rebuilding mode, right? And I feel like drafting Bijan Robinson would make sense at 10 because you want an overpowering offense, which we spoke about in the beginning. You want an offense that's going to put up 30 points, right? So if you're getting a prospect that's being compared to the likes of Saquon Barkley, like, it may make sense to have him on the cheap for the next five seasons.
Mm-hmm.
That was my theory.
I like it.
That's all it was. That's
solid theory.
It's been in my head all day.
Next,
yeah. I mean, should we tackle more positions, or should we save this for next week's pod as well?
Let's tackle one more position, and then we can save the.
Eric has a script. That's what it is. Eric has a
save
script.
The linebackers and the defensive line next time.
So
I got the script early. I just don't want to reveal it to you. It's all a master plan.
So we're doing safeties.
No, I would say so. I want to end on one. Going back to the chat earlier, the wide receiver. Let's talk about wide receivers, because I think I'm gonna get.
I forgot about wide receiver 3. I got one guy in my head, and I'll take this one first. I think you sign Mecole Hardman. I don't care about the injuries. Listen, the grass is always greener in a different field, in my opinion, right? I feel like you don't need much out of him. You input him in the slot. He's reliable hands. He has great speed. What more could you ask for? And you save money by cutting Quez.
You're not going to add Juju just to stir the pot?
Oh, hell no. I don't want that guy on my team. That freaking clown.
So Hardman makes perfect sense, but based on everything I've said so far, which is that we're going to sign a free agent, yeah, I think Hardman's probably one of the best options. Maybe a trade also makes sense for somebody who I don't think it would cost a lot in trade assets to bring Hollywood Brown in.
Wait,
where is he? His contract expires next season. He's in Arizona, and Arizona's not having fun, man. So I think that is something that you can talk about. Like, you want to talk about a man that can probably run, and open the field up for everybody. I think he's pretty well equipped for the job. But now the hands, on the other hand, we can discuss this.
Is Hollywood Brown a slot receiver, or is he an outside?
No,
guy?
He's a wide. I think I've seen him more wide.
I mean, bringing him in would make
he just
sense to take the top
he just
off.
runs go routes, man. That's all it is.
But you can also I always think that AJ Brown is somebody that would be interchangeable in the slot because he's just a huge body.
Yeah.
Who do you got, Mort?
I want to say
DeAndre Hopkins. I knew it. No, okay. Sorry.
I want to say actually that this is an underrated position that they could draft. I think probably second round is an opportunity. I think that just kind of looking at the way the draft, and again, stuff's going to change. We're still really early in the process, but I think that wide receivers are one of those overlooked positions in this draft, and that doesn't happen often. So I think that this is actually one of those positions where I think this might be one of the more like exciting positional picks. I know that people don't get excited about offensive defensive line so much unless it's an edge rusher, but I think there's a high chance they go like O-line, D-line, first round, probably D-line first at the 10th pick, depending on who falls. And then they might go receiver. Like I don't think there's a whole bunch of needs, and I think that like again, corner position, like you have so many young guys on the roster, you might add someone later. I really do like Josh Jobe. I think that he did show some flashes. Is he ever going to be a starter? I don't know, but I think that you're fairly content. Just kind of waiting it out. We thought this was going to be like a star-studded cornerback class, and the way it's shaping out, just not so much.
But me a run at quarterbacks and a run at defensive line.
Right, exactly. So what it really just kind of like paying attention to what position is going to fall, and I think that receivers might be the position that falls. But in terms of free agents, there's also like it's not as maybe stacked as the running back class, but you have some interesting names. The problem is the Eagles really need someone that can play the slot. I think bringing back Zach Pascal's.
I think that's key. I think you have to do that.
A good idea.
Culture too.
But players like DJ Chark are interesting, right?
Yeah.
Like, again, like just positional versatility, he can do a lot. I think that's probably going to be one of the things that the offense focuses on is a bit more moving people around. Clearly you saw that worked for the Chiefs, and the Eagles didn't do as much of it, pre-snap motion, stuff like that. They kind of lined up and then they played. So I think you might see more of that.
Would anybody be against bringing back Nelson Aguilar? I think he's a free agent.
That was another name that
I
was
think
thinking.
he would be against it.
Fair enough. I don't know how much he wants to do. I mean, fuck. Let's bring back Mac Hollins if that's the case.
Well, no, I mean, I feel like Aguilar is a good interchangeable receiver, right?
If we're talking last year, I'd say yes. After this year, I just don't know.
Okay.
But there's another former Patriots receiver that'd be interesting. Is
Jacoby Myers? Oh, N'Keal Harry.
Another fucking big body. I don't know what you're gonna do with him, but like, there's some like it's interesting. There's like a lot of receivers you have to use in certain ways, so it just depends how this offense is built out. But yeah, I think key is going to be bringing back Zach Pascal. I think he's a really good number 3. And that's not homer bias. By the way, that was a story came out recently with him. I hope he's all right. That was pretty.
Yeah, definitely prayers with him.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of crazy, man.
What about a pick in maybe the second round of the draft for a wide receiver?
There's a kid that I forgot somebody mentioned him. His last name might be wrong, right? I think Downs take the top off the defense. They're saying that he could fall to the second round. I wouldn't be so against going to wide receiver second round just for the fact like you need it in this offense, right? Like we saw, had Quez Watkins made that catch, we don't know what would have happened in the red zone, but the likelihood is the Eagles would have scored a touchdown right there. And right there, you're up 3 against the Chiefs at the end of the game, right? And there's a lot of times where he fumbled the ball. There's a lot of times where he missed the catch. Where a lot of times where he ran the route wrong and he just gave up on the route. And this is nothing against him, but it's just kind of like, dude, we have a championship caliber team now. There's no room for nonsense anymore. You can't waste this window. Jalen Hurts has probably like 5 to 6 good years left in him, like prime years. You need reliable receivers. You need reliable running backs. You need a reliable offensive line to go the extra mile and actually bring a second Lombardi to Philly.
What about Bryce Ford Wheaton, West Virginia? He ran a 4.3. He's pretty good hands from what I've seen, and I think he's a burner, a guy that can probably be interchangeable, maybe work. To me, that might be an improvement, immediately off of Quez. And I don't know what Quez does. Maybe he turns into some gadgety something or other, or is gone.
Well, they save I think like $3 or $4 million if they cut him. If I'm not mistaken, it's like there's no dead cap hit if they release him. But again, I don't know how sold they are on him to even expect that.
I saw some mocks that had the Eagles taking the tight end at 30, and I think that's fucking ridiculous.
Yeah, everybody's going off the theory that you draft a tight end to kind of keep the trend going, like how we did with Goddard, but they just extended Goddard like last year, and he just had a big year.
And drafted Calcaterra and Stolen.
Yeah, and there's no way they go tight end again. It makes zero sense. But yeah. But good news is, right?
Tight end factory, dude.
Oh, I don't want to hear that. Good news is free agency actually kicks off next Tuesday, right? And what that does mean is next Tuesday there is another live episode of Flippin the Birds. We'll definitely cover free agency. The likelihood of anything great happening for Eagles right now against the set expectations is very slim. I don't expect them to be dipping into this pool crazy. I actually do expect them. Yeah, you never know, right?
With Magic.
I feel like there's going to be at least one or two. I don't know. We're talking about splash moves, but decent enough. Decent enough where you look back and say that's a smart move.
I think there's gonna be one. I think the Eagles make a splash move. I think Brian bringing up Dalvin Cook, something like that. I think you consider that a splash move, and I think something like that makes a lot of sense. It reminds me of the CJGJ trade. I know that was mid-season, but it's that kind of pick where I think Howie realizes that unless you do something fairly major, you're not competing again this year. You have so many pieces on the defense leaving. I don't think they can afford to sign as many people as we thought or hoped. And they're going to let a lot of people walk. They're going to rebuild the defense through the draft and through free agency.
You can't get lackadaisical. Like you really can't do what you did in 2018, right? Mm-hmm. You kept all these these veterans and you just stood pat with everything. You can't. You got to keep moving forward.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think there might be a splash. I'm looking forward. It'd be an interesting free agency, and I think that this is one of those things we haven't had turnover at a coordinator position in so long, right? Without an entire overhaul, right? Yeah. It's been either it's everyone or it's no one. So it's gonna be really interesting, the free agency.
It's definitely gonna be very interesting. I'm definitely looking forward to it. And if Dalvin Cook does get traded, remember Flippin the Birds probably use that news first. Other than that, happy to be back. Happy to play this outro because the intro is fresh as hell. So again, shout out to Morgan for working hard on that. And yeah, we'll definitely be back next week. We're Flippin the Birds. I'm Brian Cameron alongside Eric Reese, Morgan Burkett, and we'll see you guys when free agency kicks off.
Go Birds!
Yes, sir.
Flip